Greetings, Arlo community. Ben Holiday here again, and welcome back to yet another session in our continuing webinar series. So today we're going to be diving into an introduction to Arlo and Zapier. Super exciting integration, very cool piece of software that we're very excited to be working with. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So as most of you probably know at this point, my name is Ben Holiday. I'm the Apex Customer Success Manager here at Arlo, and we are joined today by our very own Nick Buttery. He's a key player in our UK support team, Zapier guru, Arlo guru, so it was a real natural fit to bring him on board to kind of walk us through some of the nuts and bolts around this Zapier integration and what it looks like potentially for our client base. So what are we going to cover today? Zapier and Arlo overview. What is Zapier? How it works with Arlo. Nick's then going to take over and walk through a couple of use cases. He's going to walk through some example marketing, financial, administrative, and training management use cases, all very relevant to our client base. And yeah, so super exciting there. That we're then going to walk through a couple of questions that we've pulled from some of our client base over the last couple of weeks, and then identify some next steps. Yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Nick, and he'll dive into some key actions here. Thanks, Nick.
Okay, let's get started. And I think the first thing to do, the most important thing, is to address the challenges that training providers face. And I want to look at these because this is really the core reason as to why we've built Zapier. It's to address these problems, and it's to fix them for you. So every day you're dealing with a lot of manual processes. When you're moving that data in between platforms, you're wasting a lot of time around that. And more importantly, you're wasting a lot of very capable human skill. As humans, we're not good at doing boring, repetitive processes. Moving data from one platform to another, we often make mistakes. We often sort of zone out and forget a little bit of it. We're not consistent in that behavior. We want to be focusing on the creative side. That's delivering the training, delivering better training than you're delivering right now, and selling more of that training. So Zapier is here to address those sorts of problems. But what is Zapier, right? Let's have a little definition. An online tool that allows you to connect Arlo to thousands of other apps to automate repetitive tasks. That means that those workflows that you're taking care of between your different platforms, Zapier, at the click of a button, can connect those up to Arlo and can move the information coming out of Arlo into those platforms, and then sometimes that information back in to Arlo as well. And not only can it do that, but it can manipulate this information as well. So it's a lot more capable than what's happened in the past. So what does that mean for you as a business? Well, you're going to save time. We've spoken about that challenge of repetitive processes, the fact that it eats up a lot of human resource and a lot of human capability. That means you're going to be more productive as well. This is going to allow you to do things that you haven't been able to do in the past. It's going to add new value to your workflows and new value to the data that you already have, where you might have just been moving information between platforms. Like I said, we can now manipulate that information. We can extract more data from that and more value, which makes you a more powerful business overall. Staying in sync, this is probably one of the top ones from that technical perspective. Zapier means that your data is consistent between all the different platforms. That's that human error element removed, right? And it means that it's consistent at an up-to-date pace as well. You're not having a lag, and we'll talk about the problem with the lag later on. And brilliantly for you, it means you can use the best platforms. You can use the best tools. You're not restrained anymore or constricted just by native integrations. You can go out there and use your existing email marketing tool, your existing accountancy platform, or a new one, as long as they're available and they have an integration on Zapier, as long as they have those right triggers and actions, and Arlo can present the information, you can integrate those things together. And you're not going to need to engage with a developer, and you're not going to need to have that high development cost. So we've got an idea of what Zapier is. We've got an idea of what that means for your business from a value perspective. Kind of need to look at that foundation now. What a Zap is, and this is like the building block of Zapier. So definition up here is a Zap is an automated task that you want to run again and again between online apps. E.g., this example, we're looking at Arlo and Mailchimp. So we can jump down below to this diagram here to sort of understand the trigger and action. So every Zap is built up of a trigger. That's the thing that happens in the first platform that sets off the workflow. So right here, we see a new contact is created in Arlo. So every time a new contact is created in Arlo, Zapier goes ping, oh, I saw that, let's start this workflow. It's going to jump into the second step. This is called an action. This is something that's going to happen now. Here we're actually using something called the filter. We're going to look at a lot of filters down the line in the examples. They're really powerful, but a filter is just acting as a gate. And in our example here, it's looking at whether they're a newsletter subscriber or not. We're going to say they are. So newsletter subscription equals true. And then it's going to go into a second action. So this is actually something called a multi-step Zap. It uses multiple actions, and that's adding that subscriber, so adding that contact as a subscriber to Mailchimp. So Zap, two different things. It starts with a trigger, then it can have an action, it can have multiple actions, and those three things combined, or those two things, sorry, combined, they are what define a Zap. And then there's one other piece of terminology we need to be aware of as well, and that's something called a task. And a task is your quota. It's like your call minutes or on your cell phone plan. So for every time an action is executed, a task is going to be counted, and you have a limited number of tasks available to you on your plan, but we'll talk a little bit more around your options to increase those later on when we look at some questions. So how does Zapier work with Arlo? Well, it's going to give you that access to over 2,000 apps. I talked about being able to go out there to find your email marketing tool, the best one you want to use, or maybe yours already exists. The same with your messaging, your emailing tool. You can now integrate with all of those. You can see a few cool examples up in there. We're actually going to have a look at these as we build them out. And then I think the bit that I really want to look at is the coming soon section. So we're going to continue to build out features as we go down the road. Leads and organizations going to be really useful from the marketing perspective and the administrative perspective. Online activities, that's e-learning in Arlo. That's going to be fantastic for what we just see underneath there, which is two-way data sync with apps such as accounting or LMS, so we can start moving those LMS registrants, so those Arlo e-learning registrants into your LMS platform, and then we could even export their order information and add that into your accountancy platform as well. Enough of talking about what it is. Let's take a look at these in detail. I'm going to go through 4 use cases here. We're going to have a look at marketing, we'll have a look at financial side, the administrative side, and my favorite one, we'll wrap it up with training management, looking at moving those Arlo registrants into LMS, that future capability, which I think is really, really valuable. We'll go through building each one of these apps. We'll sort of have a look at what it is to start with. We'll break it down, but I'll take you through building it. I'll talk about the details around it, sort of the customization options you have, and I'll talk about the surrounding apps to build wider integrations as well. So to kick it off, we'll start with marketing. Specifically here, we're going to look at pretty much 2 of the most popular apps on Zapier at the moment, HubSpot and Mailchimp, and 2 of the most sort of laborious and time-consuming tasks that a lot of you are having to face at the moment, and that's taking data out of Arlo on a regular basis and having to put that into multiple different platforms. So CRM is obviously an incredibly important tool, and so is email marketing. But right now, if you have a new contact come in as a new customer, you're either doing this on a per customer basis, where you might be taking those person's details and copying and pasting them into HubSpot. This could be any CRM, by the way. We could be talking about Salesforce, we could be talking about Dynamics, we could be talking about Infusionsoft. As long as they integrate with Zapier, it's applicable to here. I'm just using HubSpot because it's what I've got an account with, and it's one of the most popular. But you're currently possibly copying and pasting those details into your CRM, and then having to do the same thing with Mailchimp. That could be 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes per person for multiple people on a daily basis, or maybe you're batch processing this on a weekly basis, right? But that's still an hour or two's task just to export that data, import it into both the platforms. Make sure these people are newsletter subscribers, and that's sort of a lag time between you receiving these customers and then being able to derive more value from them and build that relationship with them through your CRM and through Mailchimp or whatever it is you're using for email marketing. So we want to look at trying to minimize that time. In fact, we want to make that time non-existent, right? So that's not a time drain on you whatsoever. You can focus on the important stuff. You can focus on selling and delivering training. And that's exactly what this app does. It's a perfect example of Zapier at its most powerful. It's going to take new contacts. We see that right up in here. This is our trigger, like Ben mentioned. It's straight away going to add all of those people into your HubSpot, your CRM. And then we're going to use a filter. This is a little tool that Zapier built. It's one of their helpers. It's effectively a gate. It's going to say, I only want you to do something if you meet this certain criteria. For us, we're looking at newsletter subscription status. And if they pass, we will pass in this instance, they're going to add them as a subscriber into Mailchimp. So let's jump into building this. This is my Zapier dashboard. Yours will look pretty similar. I'm not going to go into detail about what's going on here. All we're really interested in is this big button here, which says make a Zap. Awesome. Let's give it a name straight off the bat. Add new Arlo contacts to HubSpot and Mailchimp. Right, so we know what we're doing. So this is the wizard for building all your Zaps, right? Super simple. It's click and go. Like Ben mentioned, we have a trigger. So our trigger is when this happens, we want something that's happened within Arlo. In this instance, we're going to use a new contact. So we selected our app. We said this is what's going to kick off that workflow. You're going to need to connect your account. In this instance, I actually already have my account connected to this. I have quite a few accounts. I've got to remember which one I'm using. It is this one. Wonderful. And then we get to this find data stage. So when I click this button, test trigger, Zapier is jumping over to Arlo and going, hey, can you have a look at who the 3 most recent contacts are, or the registrants, or the event, whatever your trigger is, and can you pull that information in so I can use that while I build my Zap? So we see here we've got 3 different, have a little look, we've got Lair, we've got John, and we've got Philippe. We're going to need to use Lair in this instance. The reason I picked Lair is because we look down here, we've got basic contact information. This is important to us. We've got the marketing newsletter information here. So we're specifically interested in the fact that it's true. And then we've got a little more information around who she works for, local training. She doesn't have a position in this instance, but we do have a bit of a postal address as well. So what's worth bearing in mind when you're looking at this information, whatever the entity you're dealing with is, you're not particularly interested in what this is, the actual person or event. You're interested in these fields. We need the right types of fields to be present so we can use that to build our Zap. Right here, we got some pretty basic stuff we need. Name, contact information, the newsletter subscribers, the one specific bit of information that we need to build this. So we've got that, we've pulled that in, we found the right sample for us. Now, that next step, if we look up here, was to throw all those people into our HubSpot or our CRM. So I click that next action. I can just search for HubSpot. There we go. And then again, I'm going to choose an event. I'm actually not going to choose create a contact here. The reason I'm not is I'm going to go find contact. And if we have a look at this, this is going to look up, see if this contact already exists. So it's going to check whether layers already exist within HubSpot. And if it doesn't, then they're going to create a new contact for us. Nice and easy, kind of 2 birds, 1 stone sort of thing. Again, connect an account. Awesome. And then this is the lookup step. Really, sort of HubSpot's a bit more unique. Typically, a CRM or most apps that work with Zapier, they'll have a lookup step, but they'll use fixed values. So for Arlo, we use a first name, last name, and email address. It's the same for Salesforce, same for Dynamics when I've looked at them. HubSpot's unique. It actually lets you choose this. But it's a good opportunity to really show you what it is to build a Zap, right? So right here, this has gone into HubSpot and said, give me all the different fields that I could search by. So I know I want to look for first name. So all I do, type in first name. There we go. It's going to have a think about it for a moment. And now I can do this. So I open up, this is what it's actually going to look up for. So it says, I'm going to look for first names in HubSpot, and I want to see if I have a match to a first name from Arlo. Right, simple as that. We've done that. Need to be a little bit more specific, obviously. So we're going to have a look for last names. There we go, last names, wonderful. And we're going to do the same again. So I'm going to look for last names within my contacts in HubSpot. I'm going to try and match it up to Silver. Right, doesn't exist, then we're going to create a new one. But actually, we need to be a little bit more specific. You could have a few people named Lair Silver. So I'm going to use, like I mentioned, email. So contact information, email. We're going to have a little scroll down. It's tucked down away in here. Nice. Have a thunk. Wonderful. And email. Right, but I could be using other things as well. So if I wanted to use postcode, I could use postcode. I could use the line address. I could use their organization. If you only put people into a CRM based on their organization, you could use that. Don't need to worry about this bit. What we are interested in is this little tick box here, which is create a HubSpot contact if it doesn't exist yet. I know Lair doesn't exist. I just created her in my platform. So I'm going to click that, and then we see this big odd list of things, right? These are all the available fields within HubSpot that I can populate. So if I have a jump in, we're obviously going to need some more. We need the first name and last name again. Let's just scroll through these. There's quite a few. It's going to take me a moment. There we go. First name right there, and I'm going to drop in last name. I believe email's just here as well. And then we can start doing something a little bit different. So we know that we saw that she did work for an organization. So if I look for, maybe it's an organization, job, it's around here somewhere. as a job title. We didn't actually have a title, I don't think, if I have a look for position, but we can populate it, right? So even though I don't have data here, we know that we pull this position across. So I know that I can put it in there, right? If I go across to a street address, I know I did pull in a street address, so I can just pop this in here. If I little scroll down, I'm pretty certain I had a city there for Lair. Nope, I didn't, but it doesn't matter. It's still the option. It's still good to populate it. And there was definitely a postal code though. What I want you to take away from this really is not really about what the specific information I'm including in this, because that's going to be relative to yours, right? Your CRM is going to look different to mine. It might have a lot more fields. It might have a lot less. It might have a lot to do with previous qualifications. It might have a lot to do with equality conditions. It might be really simple and basic. You're just taking contact information. What's important to understand here is how easy it is that I'm just going in. I'm just getting rid of this. I'm saying first name, and all I need to do is click it. Right, so we'll call it that. That's enough for this example. We'll click continue, and in this step, it's going to go right. Do you want to test and review? And I do. So it's going to go away and it's going to look and see if this exists in HubSpot as a contact. And if it doesn't, if Lair doesn't, it's then going to populate it with the fields that we told it we wanted to populate. So it's having a little search at the moment. It's not going to find Lair, and then it should return a result in just a second. Hey, there we go. Test contact was sent to Lair. So if I grab this and bring it over, this is my HubSpot. It's a development account. Jump into the contact list, and voila, there we go. Lair Silver. We can go into there, and if we have a scroll down, we can view all properties, and we can go. That's their unique ID. Where's email address, first name? There was. Let's have a look. Let's find the postcode, shall we? There you go, postal code. Right. So there, in 2 steps, or 1 step even, every single new customer you have coming into Arlo is now in your CRM as well. All the information they're providing to you in Arlo is going into that CRM exactly the same. You're not touching it. It's not information that's going to get mixed up in any way. You're not going to make a mistake. You're not spending time trying to remember to make these movements and this duplication of data. It just works, right? We could leave it at that. That's a pretty powerful Zap in itself, but we're not done. We want to do more, right? We want to add these people to Mailchimp as long as they've signed up to this the newsletter. The next thing we're going to use is a helper. Zapier has built a big range, well, it's predominantly these 4, but a good range of really useful little sort of widgets that live within Zapier that can do things, and they can do a lot of different things. For us, we're using the filter in this instance. Like I mentioned, it's a gate, right? It's very similar to how you build reports in Arlo, actually. I'll give it a second to load up. So it's going to say only continue if a certain condition is met. So I'm going to go from this Arlo step again in here. I can just search. I know I'm looking for the newsletter in this instance. It's going to say only continue if the newsletter subscription subscriber contains the value of true, right? And I know Lair does, so it's going to continue for me. And to see, does this work? I'm going to switch that over to false. Send it to go again. There you go, right? If I was to go find a contact which was a false contact, we did have one in there and was to run it on that, it would have proceeded for that. But obviously we want to run on true. There we go, awesome. So now only if that person signed up to the newsletter are they going to get to proceed to be added into Mailchimp. So I'm going to add that in right now. That's another app. Here we go, Mailchimp. Same again, choose the action. We're going to add a subscriber. Once again, we're going to connect up that account in a second. Oh, it's going to have a think about it first. Oh, no, I was already there. Mailchimp training, wonderful. And 2 bits of required information, very simple with Zapier. Training, that's the list I've made. Yours could be whatever. And we're going to pull, you can pull up the email address from either of these really. I'm going to pull the Arlo one. Not going to worry too much about these other things. If you had groups, we can look at ways around to do that. You could put in this postal address information. The one field I am going to include is this Arlo ID. And the reason I'm going to include this is because if you were to look at our documentation around Mailchimp, you're going to see that we can provide a 2-way sync. And it's pretty much a full integration, right? But we need this ID as part of that 2-way sync because that's what we're going to use as a unique identifier to know that both platforms are talking about the same person every time. And what that means is if someone updates their preference in Arlo, so they unsubscribe in Arlo, it's going to unsubscribe them in Mailchimp. And if they unsubscribe in Mailchimp, it's going to unsubscribe them in Arlo. Yet another thing that you're not having to try and keep track of, yet another thing that's automated for you. Done, right? I could put the first and last name in here as well if I wanted. Here we go, Lair and Silver, wonderful. We'll click continue on this one. We're going to do another test and review. Okay, so I'd actually used this one before, it seems. Let's see if I can find someone new to quickly whiz through. I believe I haven't with Philip Sterling. Let's have a look. Hey, perfect, cool. So I'm gonna just grab my Mailchimp tab from over here, which I'm signed in on at the moment. Awesome. We're gonna jump into all my contacts. There we go. That was in fact his email address. There's his Arlo ID. There's his first name. There's his last name. This is obviously all made up information, but that's pulled that all through just like I did with HubSpot. So let's jump back into this and let's have a quick review. In, what was that, maybe 10 minutes maximum, we've automated 2 different tasks, which I spoke about, could be taking you 5-10 minutes per person, could be taking you 2 to 3 hours a week to bulk transfer, and now it's done, right? I press this button, it's turned on. Every time on my platform over here, I add a new contact or a new customer comes in as a new contact, they're going to get added. Let's say you have existing customers already and you need to do this. Well, we can do this with existing customers as well, right? Instead of running a new contact in Arlo, we do the same thing but with an updated contact in Arlo, right? So we can cover all those different bases. So now all of your existing customers, all of your new customers that are coming into you, you're no longer touching their data, moving between systems. It's just doing it in the background for you. That's awesome. Like that's never been able to be done before with Arlo. So that's just one example, right? Let's have a little jump back over into this. We're just going to have to open this back up. Financial, right? A big one here. This is a big NFR that we've seen, sending payment reminders. It's an important thing to be able to do, right? You want to make sure that you're collecting those payments from your customers either on time, or if they're failing to make payments on time, you have a robust system to chase them to collect it. But it's a very, very frustrating thing to need to do manually, right? You're essentially dedicating an entire person, maybe on a daily basis, to follow up with people to collect these payments. And you want them to pay as you want them to attend, and obviously the premise is you want to make money. How can we automate that though? Well, there's a Zap for it. In this instance, we're going to be looking at this Zap from a payment reminder before the payment due date because it's a simpler one to set up, but we can build this to do it as a payment sort of follow up for an overdue payment if they've missed their order due date. So new orders coming into Arlo, that's our trigger once again. So I've got the filter here again, that's going to look to see if those orders were paid or not. So if they're not paid, they're going to be able to continue. We're then going to use 2 new helpers here. This is the formatter. It's awesome. It can do wonderful magical things. We're going to have a delay to make sure we wait till the right time. And then once we hit that right time, then we're going to send this email. So let's jump back into Zapier. We're going to create a new Zap and we can whiz through this bit. Now this is a little bit different. Because we're still in beta, we mentioned that some functionality isn't quite there yet, right? So this is a private version. This isn't one that's public to you right now, but we're working on it. The important thing is I can demonstrate this and we know it's coming. So we're going to say for a new order, hook up that account again. Always got to remember which one it is. It's this one. And again, we're going to go fetch some information from Arlo about new orders. Wonderful. What do we got? We have some e-learning from Philippe as well. Nice. What we're actually super interested in seeing here is this field, right? Is marked as paid equals false. That means we know we can use this one to build the whole workflow out. If we didn't, look, we can do some more here. We can pick one that would work. Important thing to note, right? If one of these 3 samples for any entity don't have the information you need, jump into Arlo, build whatever it is, make a mock contact, a mock registration, a mock order, and then press this button, load more. It's not going to pull anything for me in this case, I don't think. No, so it would have just done it. But if I just made a new order, it would have pulled that new order in. So I could have gone in, made a quick test order that would have been an offline payment and not put a payment against it. So I meet the conditions I need to here. I could do that with an e-learning registrant. I could do that with an event. I actually recommend if you're building things like the CRM and the Mailchimp one, create dummy contacts or re-register yourself as a contact with a different email address, because that way you might not accidentally send them something that you don't want to. Like in this example, we are going to be sending an email. I'm okay. I'm using a dummy account. It's not a problem. So we're going to use, are we with Philippe? Yep, we're with Philippe. Perfect. We're going to jump in. Like we said, we're going to build a filter here. And that filter is looking to see marked. Yeah, we go. Is marked as paid. contains, and we're interested in false. If you're wondering why I use contains instead of exactly matches is exactly matches, even case sensitive. So I know that there are only two conditions here, true or false. So contains is a safe bet. I'm going to hit continue. Wonderful. We're going to keep proceeding. Now we're going to crack open these other helpers. We're going to go for the formatter first. So the formatter can do a whole bunch of different things, right? It can manipulate and change values in numbers, words. It can change these utilities, so it can do a little lookup table. We're not going to touch on anything too sort of deep like that. We're just going to stick to date and time, but it's awesome what it can do with date and time, right? So there's two options here. We could either add subtract time or we can format it. We want to subtract some time, right? We're sending this payment reminder a period before the order due date. So what's my input value? Well, I just said it, it's our order due date. Search for that. Order date, order due date, 22nd of August. And then there's this bit here, this expression. And this is amazing, right? Where you'd normally have to write a special line of code to be able to manipulate that date, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say take 14 days off. Right, that was it. That's now taken 2 weeks off. I'm going to say I want it to go out in a certain format as well. I'm in England, so I'm going to be going, where is my day, month, year? There we go, wonderful. The from format is useful if you have a weird date format up here, which sometimes Arlo does. Arlo actually exports a lot of its time dates in, where is it hiding? This format here, which is very specific. But Zapier is pretty good at guessing what it's looking at over here, so we can leave that in this instance. We'll hit continue, and we're going to test and review this. And we can see here, we're now looking at the 8th of August. So we knew that our order due date was the 22nd. We've just taken 14 days off. What's 14 days? Well, that gives us the 8th of August. So just like that, in like a minute, I've changed the time. Not quite literally, but you know what I mean. Perfect. I can now say, I want to hold until then, right? So I'm going to use a delay. And the delay is epic, so I can say delay until. And this is cool because what I can do here is we see an example of where I'm using not now Arlo information, right? So I don't want the order date. I'm using the manipulated information, that new due date. And I can take it there. There we go, 8th of August. This little thing down here says, if for some reason this Zap got to a point where this date was in the past, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to do it if it's 15 minutes in the past? You always want me to do it? We'll leave it with a day, right? If this for some reason ran a day late, it shouldn't. If there's a glitch, then it's still good to send that send this email out. So this here, we've now taken a new order. We've made sure it's not paid. We said, all right, I want to send out a payment reminder 14 days before the due date for the order, and I want you to wait until then. Now we need to send an email. So a little plus. I am going to use Outlook. There's a few different options, right? If you don't want to use Outlook, there's Gmail. I mean, you can see just how many are coming up. There is even that was right there. There you go. Email by Zapier, right? So that you can even send them directly from it. I like Outlook because I'm hooked up to it. I'm used to it. And it gives me the functionality I want. It lets me show you something really cool further down the line when we're building this as well. So choose that event, send an email, connect up your account if you need. I've got mine right here. We've got some required fields. Obviously, we need to send it to someone. So we're going to send this to the order contact. Oh, let me type in email. There we go. Let's Leah herself in this instance. If you wanted to send this to a specific internal email address, so you know these emails are being sent, BCC it as well. Subject, that's obviously required, so we're going to say payment reminder, and then we're going to say we want it for that specific order. So if I type in code here, order number 4. And then the body format. We're going to come back to revisit this in a bit, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to set this to text. Now I can just build my email. So this is where I'm going to start blending fixed plain text that I'm going to type in with the dynamic information we're regularly pulling from Arlo. So I'm going to say, hi, first layer. I want to reach out and let you know that your balance of pounds, and we're going to say, what's our total? 900. And we'll say that order code again so they know what they're dealing with is due for payment by, and then we can go back to that due date. This is the original one. We obviously don't want the one we're sending it on. Please get in touch with us to arrange payment. To kind regards, Arlo. Oh, not king regards, kind regards. Nice. and then I can click continue. What I'm quickly going to do before I actually send this, I'm just going to flick this over to be my own email address because we want to take a look at what this looks like. nickbutchery@arlo.co. And I'm going to hit continue. And we're going to, oh, it doesn't like something we're dealing with here. There we go. Just in review. That was a really good example, by the way, of how clear Zapier errors are, right? I clicked on that error, it took me straight back to where it was. It had the warning symbol, I opened it up, I just needed to save it again. I don't think it had pulled through the date correctly, so I just wanted to do it again. But errors are handled really, really well. They're not weird, horrible things you have to read. So I am hoping, if I look here, there we go. This is the one we want. There it is, hi there. I want to reach out to you. That's that dynamic balance we brought in. That's that order number. It's up there as well. There's the due date for it. So this is going to be that unique order information for every billing contract for every order, right? It's always going to have the right information being pulled from Arlo and sent out automatically. You're not doing anything, right? That's awesome. So that's one way of doing it. But that's not a very interesting email to look at, right? It's not very inspiring. Certainly not inspiring to make someone pay you. Let's get rid of that. Let's revisit this here quickly, this HTML, right? So there's two different body formats, and HTML is the code which websites are written on. I'm sure you've heard about it before. It's also the code which Arlo emails are built on, the ones which are branded to your own company, whether you've changed it from the default or not. You'd like to be able to send these emails looking like that. Well, using this, we can. Specifically, I'm going to grab just a little bit that I've done. There's a bit of a Blue Peter moment. This is one I prepared earlier. I'm just going to grab this code, and it's going to look kind of daunting and confusing, but I'll walk us through it real quick, and then I'll show us what the results are, and it's really quite awesome. So I'm going to drop us in here. As you can see, there's a lot going on, but specifically, we're interested in these bits down here. Now, this has come from a different Zap, so I just need to type in the reminders here. So I just need to put in code. There we go. I need to change this one over to be the first name. Where else are we at? That's that total amount again. Let's replace that. So you can see again, like I am not touching the code. So if this is something you're interested in, by the way, this is something to get in touch with us about because we need to pull that code out from your Arlo emails. It's a service we're going to offer, or we do already offer. And you'll see why it's so valuable when we get to send this email back to myself. Let me just do this last one. Oh, G. There we go, right? So we populated it with exactly the same information that we had in just the plain text written one that I made. Just now, when I hit continue and I test and review, we'll wait for that email to come in. There we go. Boom. This is exactly the same as my Arlo email. In fact, I took this from an invoice email from one of my old other platforms. I've tweaked it to get rid of some of the tables within it and then repopulated it with this dynamic information. So your customers don't even know the difference, right? It even says down in here, it actually says it's been created by Arlo, and technically has its Arlo information, and I work for Arlo. But you can now brand these to look exactly the same, right? If you've done some custom styling around this, it's going to look like that. Once we start introducing our email customization options, it's going to be even easier to brand these and to pull that information over. Like I said, there's quite a few steps involved in doing that. It is a bit of a technical task. If you're interested in it, get in touch with us at support or your CSM. We'll gladly, we're more than happy to have a chat about the options around doing that. If you're someone who's sort of fairly comfortable dealing with HTML, fairly comfortable dealing with extracting that information, we can give you the guide as well. We're happy, let's just have a chat and figure out the best route forward. So let's have a quick recap of what we've just done on this one. Every new order coming into Arlo, we've used those filtered again to say, is this paid? We've manipulated that due date. We could manipulate that to be in the future. That's how we deal with it being a order date, sorry, an overdue payment date. And the reason I didn't demonstrate that is because the delay is awesome, but the limitation with it is it can only delay up to 30 days. So if you have payment terms of 60 or 90 days, this isn't going to work for you in this format. Have a chat with us. There are a couple of other ways we can probably approach this. And if you're interested in doing the overdue payments, I'm building out the guide for that. That's going to be there. It just depends on using an updated order rather than a new order action. But you understand like the value and what's going on here, right? You can now chase people for your payments while you're not ever thinking about how to chase people for the payments you're owed. Again, you're focusing on selling more training and getting more payments, and you're delivering that level of service and that quality of training to your customers. Awesome. Let's have a look at another. Administrative. So this one's nice and easy, but again, another big NFR we've had, syncing with Google Calendar and Outlook Calendar. You want your team to have the visibility. Arlo is obviously a fantastic tool for scheduling. It's a fantastic tool for, in fact, automatically notifying registrants, presenters, event managers, admins, support staff of what's going on in events, and they can add those calendars in. But not all the people who work for you are necessarily on Arlo. In fact, there's a good chance that they aren't. But you need those people to be able to see what's happening with Arlo events. Right? We've not really been able to do that unless you've been sharing those calendar invites across. This changes that completely. Now, sort of a caveat that I just want to mention off the bat when I'm making this, the reason I'm using Google Calendar, I understand most people are with Outlook, is because Outlook unfortunately has a pretty limited integration here. They let you create events, but that's it. Google Calendar is better because it's going to let you create events, it lets you update those events and delete those if you cancel it. So it's always going to reflect the latest information within Arlo, whereas Outlook is only going to reflect an event creation. Now that's still an incredibly valuable tool to have, but it's just something you need to be mindful of when you approach this as an integration. This one's going to be super quick. We're going to whiz straight through it. It's just a one-step Zap. We can use the beta. It's ready to go right now. We're going to be running on the new event trigger this time. Once again, we'll just jump through this bit. Gosh, I should really be better at this, shouldn't I? Where are we? Not that one. That one. Grab the event information. Sorry. Is this the one? Yeah, advanced scheduling. Perfect. So that's fine. And Google Calendar right there. So that's what actually it's worth noting, right? When you start using Zapier a little bit more, it does get quite smart. It starts realizing the things, it's not going to do it there. But it starts recommending the ones that you use on a regular basis. So it's pretty quick to build these things. You can do a quick event or a detailed event in Google. In Outlook, it's just a standard event. I use a detailed event, more options. I like more options. Hook up that account again. And here we go. We can see what's required. There's a little bit of information here. There's quite a lot in the detailed event. Really cool thing, you can do a personal calendar or you can do a shared calendar. With Outlook, actually, it's even better because they have, if you're running Exchange and 365 calendars, it'll see those as well. And I've tested that. It works perfectly. We ran a test with our UK team for a bit as well. Works like a treat. I'm going to put this in the Arlo calendar, so it's shared with all of us here. All I really want to know there is the name of the event. And I'm going to skip over these things. In fact, no, I want to put the venue in. Venue names like this are on their way. This is a little bit weird, right? Because this is a session, it's pulling all session venue names at the same time, right? So sorry, this is a multi-session event. What I'm going to do, if I just jump across, I'll grab a non-multi-session event just to make this a little bit clear. There we go. If I go back into here and I look for venue, there we go. Zapier training on the Arlo campus, exactly what we're doing at the moment. Start date and finish date. If you recall, this is where I mentioned those start dates and finish dates come out a little bit weird. That's that format that I was talking about. Absolutely fine for computers to understand those, so we can just pop those straight in there. Not going to worry about any of the repeating stuff. Attendees, this is a point at which we can say, right, I want myself to be, so let's say I'm not an Arlo user. Let's say I work in billing, but I need to know that. Let's say support as well. Right, they're not an Arlo user. At the minute, you can add as many as you want, right? You can keep going. They're pretty unlimited in that sense. And then you can put in reminders as well. We're going to skip over that. We're just going to send this once it's had a think. Test and review again. Perfect. That's just been created. If I pull this across my Google Calendar, I believe, hey, there we go. And the reason we got two is because we added that support and we added that myself in there. So if this was a shared calendar, you wouldn't necessarily really need to do this. With Outlook, I think it only creates the one event and adds them as actual attendees. I seem to recall, I'm pretty certain, in our documentation, we use Exchange when we do Outlook calendar. That's because it has better support for team calendars and better support for attendees. If you don't have Exchange, you just have Outlook, it's not a problem. You can use that as well. But if you can use that Exchange, I'd definitely recommend that instead. So that one, literally a matter of minutes, you now have a live sync of all of your new Arlo events going into your calendar. That's something we've been asked about all the time. It's a fantastically powerful feature to have. Your team always knows what events are coming up. Your team always knows where it should be focusing its time, right? So let's jump into the last one, my favorite one, training management. This is really going to be demonstrating where we want to be with Arlo. Obviously, as we've been dealing with the COVID situation, that move away, or the sort of the prohibition of not being allowed to do face-to-face, we had to adapt to online training. We did some fantastic work around live online with a Zoom integration. We've got multi-session webinars literally just about to hit the platform, which is going to be epic. But we're seeing that permanent shift, right? Distance learning, more personalized learning, remote learning is here to stay. A lot of you are already starting to look at LMS. I've had some really fantastic conversations. We're hoping more of you are going to pick it up, especially with this now, meaning you can adapt to it. We obviously have our integration with Moodle. It's fantastic. It's a two-way sync. Moodle is a brilliantly powerful platform. It's great if you want to invest heavily into e-learning, but it is quite a lot to get going. It's a lot in terms of investment in time. It's a lot in terms of investment of capital. You might want to dip your toe in slightly differently. This Zap right here, and in fact, the way that this app with any LMS is going to allow you to do that, right? So much the same problem as what we had with the CRM and HubSpot. You're going to hopefully be taking a lot of e-learning registrants, right? You can't keep manually enrolling those on your LMS. It would take up all your time, right? So you're either, at the moment, saying, okay, I have a 3 to 5 wait day to your customers within the welcome email, and they're having to wait for a service they've paid, which typically should be instant delivery. It's a digital service. Or you're dedicating a massive amount of time and resources to enrolling these people as quickly as possible. We don't want to deal with that, right? We want this to take care of it itself. This app's going to do that. New registration in Arlo, that's our trigger. Once again, we're back with the filter. That's just going to look if they're approved, and we're going to use it in this instance to make sure they're on the right e-learning. And then I'm using Talent LMS here because that's what I had to hand. They actually require you to make a new user first and then enroll them. Most of the LMSs you'll look at on Zapier, most of the ones I've worked with, they actually give you the option to sort of bundle that all into one, right? So you only need one of these rather than two. But this is what I got. So let's go back across to my Zapier. We'll make a new one. And again, this is similar to payment reminders. We're so close, we're almost there. We're just sort of tidying up the last little bit. So it's currently private. The public version's coming really soon. New registration, and that's the one. God, I got it first time this time, good. And we'll test the trigger, we'll pull in a new registration. Now, obviously, what we need to be aware of here is the registration we're pulling, we need to be an online activity. I'm just gonna double check over here that we're all set for that. Yep, looks good. And we can see here, this is an online activity. So this is Zapier training. Once again, this is the e-learning version of that face-to-face course that we've seen earlier in these demonstrations. We're back with Philippe as well. Wonderful. It's got the order information as well. So if you're building out a multi-step Zap where you are also dealing with this order information, it's something we want to do in the future. Obviously, we're building towards accountancy sync. You can do this all in one Zap if you needed. It's probably not how you would, but the potential's there. What we're interested in, obviously, he's approved and he's on e-learning. And we can double check quickly if we zoom back up to the top here. Status active, that's what we needed. So I'm going to hit continue. And I needed that filter. And that filter is going to look for those two different conditions. The first one we're going to look at is the status. And this is the first time we're going to stack registration status. Oops. Approved, wonderful, and back to contains, approved, and we're going to use an and in this instance, right? Because what we also want to check is whether they're on the right event. And there's a couple of different things that we can use to do this, or a couple of different approaches to how we do this. I'm building this right now as like a one-to-one relationship, one Zap for every type of e-learning course you have. I'll show you a little bit about what we're aiming towards in terms of doing this all under one Zap and with blended learning once we've built this out. But I know that my template code, I'm just going to do it on the template code. It's the only bit you need. It's unique to a template anyway. It's Zappy. So if I hit this, there we go. Awesome. It's approved. And then we're going to be jumping into Talent LMS. So there's the first one. Remember, we're going to need two here. A new user to start with. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I should be finding a user, much the same as HubSpot here. Find, optionally, create one if it doesn't exist. So that's my account. And you see how, like with HubSpot, I talked about having dynamic fields where you could choose. This is much more indicative of a normal step in a Zap, right? Fixed fields, but that's fine. We're going to look at the email address. There we go. And his username. I would be treating the username as the email address as well. And that's that box, create him. And then it's going to ask, I have a group. I created an Arlo registrant group. I didn't create a branch. Required information first, last. Login, that's his email again. It could be something unique. You could actually give someone the option, if you're using Talent LMS, you could give them the option to input a unique username during the checkout if you wanted to, but I think this is fine. Something that's slightly odd for Talent LMS, they do require a password. All the other LMSs I've looked at haven't needed that. They'll auto generate one. They give you the option, but they'll auto generate one if you don't populate it. I'm just going to put this in like this as a demonstration. If this is something that you need to be required, it's worth getting in touch with us. We'll have a conversation about what the most secure and effective way to pass passwords between these systems are and to store them. So we don't need to worry about it. We're just doing a demonstration here. It's going to, again, search step, create step if it needs. I don't believe Philippe's in here, so a test user was sent rather than found. So he's just been created in Talent LMS, but I now need to enroll him in a course, the cool bit, right? Add user to course. Talent LMS. Zapier training is the course I'm going to put him on. This has 2 levels of it, so Zapier training there as well. The user email, I'm actually going to take his user email from the contact, because if the reason we want to do it for this, because remember we did that find step, if we had found the person rather than create it, we want to make sure we're using the right login, right? So we're going to take that email. The role, he's going to be a learner, not an instructor, and his user ID, again, it's going to have pulled that user ID. So when it created Philippe, it also pulled information back about how it created him, which is things like this, right? We didn't see all this information when we created him. It's just pulled that in. So we're gonna use that. It's great. It's a unique identifier. It's a very useful thing to have. And we're gonna test and review. Awesome, created. Let's ping across to here and go into my courses and talent. And I'm in Zapier training. And I think, other than myself, he is currently the only P Sterling that's the only registrant. But there you go, created. Now, let's just very quickly, I want to have a look at what happens if you're running blended learning, or what happens if you're running multiple e-learning courses, right? How can I deal with that without having to build a massive number of Zaps? You only have a limited number of Zaps with your account. Your account, 20, you can fill that 20 out pretty quickly. Well, you would need to step up to the professional plan here to be able to do this. Because this uses a pretty unique thing called paths, but I want to show this off because this is sort of like one of the power plays of what Zapier can do. So we're going to keep that filter in here, but what I would say is, instead of just being this, it's going to have a thing, this one here, I'd say registration status contains approved. And then what I might actually do is, in this step, is flick this over to being, I seem to remember, there was, if I just do online activity status, and that's active, this is doing 2 things in one for me. One, it's saying this is an online activity and not a face-to-face course or live online. And 2, the course is active. So we're not going to have any mistakes. We should proceed on this anyway. We're going to jump back into this. What's a path, right? A path is, to start with, a filter at the very top, but it's multiple filters. So I can remove those quickly, and I could say this is blended learning 1. Right, this is the first option. And what we'll see in just a second is one of those filters again. And I'm going to say code here contains Zappy. Zappy. Let's continue. In this instance, it's going to run. And then what I would go in and do is, I'm going to add in my talent LMS here. And let's just say I was going to do, we've done the new user as well. I'll just do the add user, but we'll go through the process. That would enroll the user on that course, right? And then maybe I also need to add him to a certain Google Sheet as well, right? Because I need to keep a database of these people. For some reason, it's used in a different platform which doesn't integrate with Zapier. I can add them to a Google Sheet. I also want to send out a custom email. So I'm going to send out an email to that customer with some information about this, right? And maybe some other pre-formatted information in that template of the email. So I've done that. That's blended learning option 1. Okay, so awesome. And then I'm going to say, well, what about if we have a different one. So this is blended learning option 2. Move those extra fields. I would go through much the same process, right? I'm going to have this pop up here in a moment, and I'm going to actually say this is code, and instead of using this online activity code, they actually registered for a face-to-face, which is part of blended learning. And let's say my code for that is Lexo. Right? It's not going to run in this instance, but part of that blended learning with the face-to-face, let's say they've also got some live online, which is scheduled through Arlo, but they also are registered on Go 1, right? That's another version. But they're also going to be added into a Slack group, right? Or I think even, oh, there isn't WhatsApp yet. That's a shame. I believe WhatsApp are working on it, but they're going to get added into a Slack group or a Teams group. You want to add them to another sheet. You want to add them to another email list or marketing group, or maybe another Mailchimp list. You can do that in here, right? But what the important thing is this is looking at different aspects of what they're doing, of what they've signed up to, and it's making sure they're being enrolled in the right groups and the right courses dependent on their pathway. All in one Zap, right? So you're not building multiple Zaps, not loads and loads of tasks. It's very efficient. If you're interested in this, definitely get in touch with us. It's one to talk to us about. But the power and the potential around blended learning with pathways and Zapier is really quite awesome. Right, that's it. I'm going to wrap up there. That's a lot of information. We've gone through 4 different use cases. All have been big requests that we've had on our feature request. All have been things that we've wanted to be able to tick off the list for ages, and we know are going to be incredibly valuable for you. All of these are things which documentation exists for out there. Templates are out there for as well, so you can get cracking. If you need a hand, send us a support ticket, get in touch with your CSM, and we're more than happy to help out. Cool. I'll hand over to you, Ben.
All right, Nick, thank you for walking us through those handful of tasks and Zaps and all of that. It certainly helps to provide some tangible context for the audience at large. So we've got a number of pre-submitted questions from our client base. We've gathered over the last couple of weeks in preparation for this webinar. I'd love to quickly dive into a handful of these with you, Nick, and get your thoughts. So number one, can Zapier store information and use it for later use? So Zapier is obviously built to do tasks there, and it's not meant to be a database, but can we store certain information for later use?
Yeah, I mean, you sort of said it quite well there. It's built to automate those repetitive, mundane things that you need to do quickly, so you can make sure your data is across all your different platforms as soon as it comes into Arlo or it changes in Arlo. And it's consistent between those different platforms. It's not built to store large amounts of data, manipulate that, and then action things down the line off of it. So always try and look at Zapier from the perspective of what can I free up time-wise with Zapier that it will do right away that I'm doing at the moment? What are jobs that I'm doing that could be done quicker by Zapier, rather than what are things that we're not able to do at the moment because we want to store and manipulate data and then do new things with it? That's really where integration comes in instead. We see things like the delay. They're a good example of actually like being able to hold a Zap, but that's got limitations in it. And if there is a use case where you're like, okay, I think this might be good for Zapier, but you're not sure, give us a shout. Happy to have a chat about it. We'll explore the options and see if we can do it.
Cool. All right. Next, Nick, and I think this is really a big winner for a lot of folks in attendance today and to be watching our recording later. Is it true that we don't need to touch any code? Is Zapier really that easy?
Yeah, no code whatsoever. No code, no development, no cost and complexity associated around those things as well. So you can build any Zap you want without ever needing to touch a line of code. We saw an example earlier where I used the HTML from the Arlo email to sort of augment and improve a Zap, and you can do that. But you saw that I got to the exact same result just by using a plain text email. I didn't have to touch the code. Code is there to improve. Code is not there to be necessary to build Zap. So anyone can pick it up, especially with that documentation, the Zap templates, our library. They can get going right away.
Wonderful. And obviously, it's kind of the snowball rolling downhill. You can kickstart that snowball with absolutely zero knowledge of any code. And as you're kind of moving down, picking up momentum, you can fine tune the product, the Zaps, with any additional code that you pick up along the way. Cool. So will Zapier be able to integrate with other accountancy platforms?
Yes, we will. So if your accountancy platform's on Zapier, and it's got the right actions, so they can create an order and that order can take payments. We're going to be able to integrate with that. We're kind of breaking this into two phases. The first one's going to be a basic accountancy sort of integration where we're looking at just exporting order information from Zapier and exporting payment information into your platform. So we're removing that cumbersome step that you have at the moment of manually exporting CSVs and then manually importing them. That's the big tick that we want to achieve quickly. And then we want to look at the two-way sync, sort of phase two, slightly further down the line, where we can take the information from the accountancy platform and we can move that back into Arlo. But that's still sort of in a scoping phase. If there are things which you think are important to you around that, we're keen to hear them. That helps us decide what we should be focusing on and what we can leave for a bit later.
Yeah, great action item there, Nick, and we'll provide some contact details for the audience at large here momentarily. But certainly feel free to write any of those thoughts down, those questions, those ideas, and flick through an email to either Nick and the support team, or myself or Ezra, your customer success managers here at Arlo. We'd all certainly be happy to field those questions and thoughts for you. Next question here, Nick. If a customer completes an e-learning course in Moodle, can I send that data back to Arlo to see when they've completed? And if so, am I able to see those results?
Yeah, that would be really cool. A similar answer to the accountancy. So not yet, but yes, that's what our end goal is aiming for. So again, phase one kind of LMS integration is let's get those Arlo registrations into your LMS so they can start learning quickly. And then phase two is how do we get that information, if it's available on, like you said, progress, outcome, grade, feedback, comments back into Arlo so you can use it there for certificates, certification processes, parts of larger blended learning courses.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Nick. So I think as we've kind of walked through all of this super cool stuff that it lies on the horizon for Zapier and Arlo, one of the last questions, and probably one that sits at the forefront of a lot of minds here at the moment, is what does all this cost? So nice segue here into kind of the last phase of our webinar for today, pricing. So we've broken this down into two key segments, obviously Arlo-based pricing and Zapier pricing. So as far as the Arlo side of the business, feel free to use one of our pre-built Zaps. We're going to continue to build and add to that library. Of course, feel free to adopt, configure. Alternatively, you can build your own. Of course, if you're not familiar with Zapier at all, you just want to save some time. One of our Arlo specialists, Nick on our UK support team, Andre Leah on our New Zealand support team, they'd be happy to field that conversation with you, kind of, provide a little bit of consulting service, sort out what it is exactly we're trying to accomplish with Zapier. And from about 200 New Zealand dollars, a one-off cost per Zap, we'll manage that whole process for you, including setup, basic customization, testing, and of course, ensuring that it works on the other side once you've implemented. Nick, if you wouldn't mind giving us, what does the Zapier side of pricing look like for customers, and which plan do we recommend as kind of a best fit?
Yeah, sure thing. If you want to get started, you can pick up the free plan, and it's great. I mean, it's free, so you can jump in, you can learn Zapier. They've got some good webinar one-on-ones themselves as well to run you through a bit of the workflow if that's useful. So I would always recommend go away and set up that free account. Not many of our pre-built Zaps can run on the free account, and I'll talk about that in a second. But like I said, great place to learn. No, you're not putting anything up front. If you want to start using Zapier to automate things with Arlo, we recommend the first pay plan. That's $19.99 a month. That takes you up from the 5 Zaps. You get 20 Zaps instead. You can use 3 of the premium apps, which is awesome. And it bumps up your task usage to 750 tasks. So you get a much larger quota. You also get access to things like the filters and the multi-steps app being the most important, because that means we can build out these larger workflows. If you look like you're going to hit that 750 tasks a month, not to worry, they're not going to force you onto the higher plan, the level up. They'll give you the option to increase your task quota. So you can say, actually, I need 5,000 tasks, or I need 20,000 tasks. And you're only paying the increased cost to that usage. And that's, we're talking about sort of cents on the dollar, or even fractions of cents on the dollar per task, realistically. So there is very good value of money from Zapier's side as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that, Nick. So what's next here? I'm sure that there are some lingering questions out there where, there's got to be some excitement in terms of what can Zapier do for me and my business. So what's next? Get started with Zapier and Arlo. Go ahead and hop into arlo.co/Zapier for some more information there. Talk to your CSM. So either Ezra or myself will certainly be in touch to follow up from this webinar. Offer some time to book some time with one of us. Also feel free to shoot over an email to support@arlo.co. We certainly want to field this conversation with you all as much as possible and guide you in the next best step here. And overall, let's get zapping. Obviously, I think everybody here at Arlo is super excited about what's to come with Zapier and Arlo. So yeah, get zapping.